Today's topic might challenge a lot of what people believe about love and relationships. She needs you more than you need her. The truth about power in a relationship. When men hear this, some laugh it off, some get angry, some think it's ego. But if you're patient and listen, you might understand relationships in a way that finally makes sense. Welcome back to the channel. As a therapist, I've spent years sitting across from couples who love each other, hurt each other, confuse each other, and sometimes don't even know why their relationship feels one-sided. And what I've learned is this: very often, the man underestimates his value, while the woman quietly depends on him more than either of them realizes. And I don't say that to create division or superiority. This isn't about one gender being better. It's about understanding the emotional economy inside relationships: attention, validation, security, consistency, affection. Whether people admit it or not, these things create power dynamics. I've had sessions where a man sits in my office feeling defeated because she walked away. He assumes she holds all the power. But later, when she returns to therapy alone, I'll see the reality. Her frustration, her fear of losing him, the anxiety she hides behind silence or anger. And because of confidentiality, I can never tell him that. But I've watched enough to understand the pattern. Men often think they are replaceable. Women often fear the moment a man emotionally detaches. And the truth is, a woman rarely leaves a man she feels secure with, physically, emotionally, or mentally. When a man stands firm in who he is, she feels it. When he loses himself, she senses it instantly. This video isn't about dominance, control, or manipulation. It's about knowing your worth, because relationships collapse when men forget how valuable they truly are. So today we're going to break this down in a simple, honest way. No hate, no ego, just clarity. Let's talk about why men have more power than they think, why many women rely on that stability, and how understanding this can completely shift the way you love and lead in a relationship. 1. Why men underestimate their emotional value. So many men walk into relationships believing they are lucky to be chosen, lucky to be accepted, and lucky to be loved. I've seen it countless times in therapy. A man will sit across from me, shoulders dropped, voice low, convinced he is the weaker one in the relationship. He thinks she has all the options. He thinks she holds all the emotional leverage. But the strange part is this: the woman sitting in that same chair, either in a separate session or months later, is often terrified of losing him. Men underestimate their emotional value because nobody teaches them they have any. Society tells them to be providers, protectors, problem solvers, but never reminds them that women rely heavily on emotional stability in a relationship. Men think women only want affection and attention, but that's not the full picture. Many women depend on the man's consistency, his reliability, the way he makes her feel safe in a world that constantly threatens her peace. When that energy disappears, her world shakes. I've watched grown men apologize for things that weren't wrong, simply to keep the relationship together. Sometimes they bend so far that they lose themselves, and when a man loses his sense of self, something shifts. He thinks it will make her love him more, but the opposite usually happens. A woman may care deeply about a man, but she responds to his confidence, his boundaries, his sense of direction. When a man abandons that, he also abandons the very traits that made her feel secure in the first place. In therapy, I hear stories that reveal the same pattern. A woman feels emotionally protected when the man stands firm, calm, present, and secure in who he is. When he stops valuing himself, the relationship becomes unstable. She begins to question the connection, not because she stopped caring, but because he did. Men underestimate their value because they focus on what they lack. Women, however, see what they gain from a man: emotional grounding, safety, decision-making strength, stability, and direction. When a man leaves or distances himself, many women feel that loss intensely. The silence, the space, the absence of his presence, it affects her more than he realizes. Here is the part most men never understand. His value is not in how much he gives up, but in how much he brings simply by being himself, not by performing, not by chasing, just by existing with purpose. When men start recognizing that their emotional stability is a form of strength, not something invisible or disposable, everything changes. They stop begging for approval and start living with intention. And a woman can feel that shift instantly. The moment a man stops underestimating his value, he changes the entire dynamic of the relationship. He stops fearing loss, stops overthinking, and stops believing he is replaceable. That is when he becomes the man she respects, depends on, and yes, needs, far more than he ever believed. 2. The silent dependency. Women don't admit one thing I've seen repeatedly in therapy is that women rarely express their deepest dependencies out loud. Not because they're hiding them, but because vulnerability feels risky. Many women fear being judged, abandoned, or labeled needy, so they learn to mask what they truly rely on in a man. And while men often assume women have all the emotional power, the truth is far more balanced, sometimes leaning in the opposite direction. Women depend on men in ways that are subtle, emotional, and often invisible. A woman can live independently, earn her own income, make her own choices, and still rely heavily on a man's emotional presence. But men don't always see it because women are socially trained to appear strong, self-sufficient, and unbothered. In therapy, they break that mask. That's when you hear the truth. I just need to feel like he's with me. Or, when he shuts down, it scares me. Or, I can't handle the idea of him leaving. What men misunderstand is that silence doesn't mean strength. Many women cling to the relationship more than they will ever verbally admit. When a woman is in love, she invests her heart, her time, her trust, and her future. If she believes the man is emotionally grounded, she becomes attached to that stability. So when he changes, pulls away, or loses himself, she feels that shift intensely. I've watched women try to hide their emotional dependency by becoming cold, distant, or even argumentative. Not because they don't care, but because they care so much that they don't know how to express it. Some panic, some shut down, some pretend they are fine, but their emotional world is deeply affected by the man's energy, consistency, and attention. Men often believe that because a woman can replace him physically, she can replace him emotionally. That's not true. A woman may move on fast in appearance, but emotionally, she may still be attached to how he made her feel. If he made her feel safe, she will miss that. If he made her feel chosen, she will feel the loss, even if she never says it out loud. There is a dependency women rarely speak about, the emotional security that comes from a man who knows who he is. Not a man who chases her, not a man who begs, a man who stands firm with or without her approval. Men need to understand this. You have a deeper impact than you realize. Women notice everything. Your tone, your patience, your leadership, your decisions. These things shape how secure they feel in the relationship. When you recognize that a woman depends on your emotional presence, you stop acting like you're powerless. You stop thinking she could replace you tomorrow, because if she truly loves you, she won't just miss the relationship, she will miss the man you are. And that kind of connection isn't easily found again. 3. Security, the real currency of relationships. When people talk about relationships, they usually mention love, attraction, chemistry, or compatibility. Those things matter, but in every successful relationship I've ever witnessed, one thing matters more than anything else: security. Not money, not status, emotional security. It is the hidden currency women rely on, even when they don't say it out loud. In therapy sessions, I've listened to countless women try to explain why they're unhappy. At first, they talk about small arguments, minor disappointments, or changes in the relationship. But when you peel back the layers, the real issue is almost always the same. I don't feel secure with him anymore. Security is the foundation of a woman's emotional world. When a man provides it, she can love freely. When she loses it, everything falls apart. Trust, attraction, respect, even communication. Men underestimate how valuable security really is. A woman can love your face, your body, your personality, but the moment she stops feeling safe, safe to speak, safe to trust you, safe to be herself, the connection weakens. Security doesn't mean controlling her. It doesn't mean owning her. It means she can count on you emotionally and mentally. It means she knows who you are, regardless of stress, temptation, irritation, or conflict. It means you don't change based on mood, fear, or insecurity. A man becomes powerful in a relationship when he gives security without losing himself. Women depend on it more than they depend on romance. When a woman knows her man is solid, she relaxes into the relationship. She opens up, she invests, she lets her guard down. I've seen the opposite too. When a man becomes unstable, emotionally reactive, insecure, jealous, or unsure of himself, the woman becomes anxious. She starts to overthink. She tests, she questions, she argues, not because she wants to fight, but because she's trying to figure out if the relationship is still safe. Security is not just how you treat her, it's how you treat yourself. Your boundaries, your decisions, your self-respect, they all send a message. A woman can feel when a man knows his value. She can also feel when he doesn't. Here's something many men don't realize. A woman can live without gifts, fancy dates, or constant attention, but she cannot stay with a man who makes her feel uncertain. Emotional security makes her loyal, respectful, and trusting. Without it, she disconnects, even if she still loves him. Men often think women have all the power, but in reality, the man who provides emotional security controls the direction of the relationship. Not through force, not through dominance, simply through stability. A woman doesn't stay because of promises, she stays because of certainty. And the men who understand this are the ones who never have to beg for love, chase attention, or fight for respect. They naturally receive it because security is the strongest currency a man can offer. 4. What happens when a man pulls away? I once worked with a couple who came into therapy because they weren't connecting anymore. The man felt ignored, unappreciated, and overwhelmed. The woman felt anxious, confused, and unsure where the relationship was heading. Neither of them could see what was actually happening until I asked him a simple question. When did you stop showing up emotionally? He paused, thought about it, and quietly admitted he had pulled away months earlier. Not physically, he still lived with her, still worked, still handled responsibilities, but emotionally, he had shut down. He stopped expressing himself. He stopped sharing his thoughts. He stopped being present. He didn't yell, didn't argue, didn't cheat, didn't leave. He just disconnected, and she felt it immediately. This situation repeats itself in countless relationships. When a man pulls away, there is often no dramatic announcement. It's silent, subtle, almost invisible from the outside, but emotionally, it hits the woman hard. She may not cry about it, she may not beg, she may not even mention it at first, but internally, she becomes unsettled. Women are emotionally intuitive. They feel distance before it is spoken. They feel absence even when the man is sitting right beside them. When a man pulls away, a woman starts questioning everything, not because she's insecure, but because she depends on emotional connection to feel safe. The moment that connection fades, she goes into emotional survival mode. Some women respond by becoming more affectionate, hoping to bring him back. Others get angry, defensive, or cold because they don't know how to express what's hurting them. Some pretend nothing is wrong but feel the distance growing like a quiet storm. What many men don't realize is that pulling away changes the power dynamic. Women who once felt secure start feeling alone. She starts wondering if she is the problem. She starts thinking he's losing interest or replacing her. And here's the most surprising part. She may start acting detached, not because she wants to leave, but because she doesn't want to be abandoned first. In the case of the couple I worked with, the woman admitted something the man never expected. She depended on his emotional presence more than she was willing to admit. When he shut down, she felt unprotected, unwanted, and unsure of the future. She didn't care about gifts, compliments, or physical presence. She cared about connection. When a man pulls away, a woman feels it deeper than most men will ever understand. And even if she never says it, she needs him far more than he realizes. Because men don't always see their value, but women certainly do. When a man detaches emotionally, the relationship begins to suffocate. But when he shows up with strength, clarity, and presence, she becomes the most loyal and consistent version of herself. 5. Why women chase stability, not just love. A common mistake many men make is believing that love is enough to keep a relationship strong. They think, I give her attention. I tell her I love her. I'm always available. Why isn't she satisfied? But here's a truth men often learn too late. Women don't commit to love alone. They commit to stability. Love without stability feels exciting at first, but over time it becomes stressful, unpredictable, and unsafe. I've seen men lose great women, not because they didn't care, but because they didn't understand what she truly needed. They relied on affection, romance, gifts, and sweet words while ignoring the deeper foundation: consistency, emotional discipline, and reliability. A woman will never say, "I'm leaving because you love me too much," but she will leave if that love comes with insecurity, jealousy, mood swings, or chaos. Men get this wrong when they assume emotional intensity is proof of dedication. They think raising their voice shows passion. They think checking her phone shows loyalty. They think accusing her of losing interest shows how much they care. To a woman, those actions feel unstable. The wrong things to say are usually rooted in insecurity. Why don't you appreciate me? You're probably talking to someone else. You don't care about me anymore. If you leave, you'll regret it. Those statements don't create closeness, they create distance. A woman cannot feel safe with a man who is emotionally unpredictable. She cannot trust a man who constantly questions himself. Stability comes from strength, not pressure. Now, here is what men rarely understand. A woman doesn't need perfect words. She needs secure words. The right things to tell her aren't emotional threats or guilt trips. They are calm, grounded statements that show confidence and clarity. I'm here and I'm not going anywhere. We'll figure this out together. I'm listening. Talk to me. I want us to work as a team. These are not weak sentences. They are leadership. Women don't chase the loudest man in the room. They chase the one who remains steady when things get difficult. A stable man doesn't argue to win. He argues to solve. He doesn't shut down to punish. He takes space to think, then comes back with clarity. He doesn't blame her for feeling emotional. He listens, absorbs, and responds with patience. Women value men who don't let chaos control them, because stability is proof of strength, and strength is what makes a woman feel protected, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Love may start the relationship, but stability is what keeps it alive. A woman will forgive mistakes, misunderstandings, and disagreements. What she cannot forgive is insecurity that makes her feel unsafe. When a man learns to speak with confidence and act with consistency, he becomes the kind of partner a woman doesn't want to lose, even if she never says it out loud. 6. How a man's confidence sets the dynamic. If there is one thing I've seen shape a relationship more than money, looks, or status, it's confidence. Not loud confidence, not arrogance, not acting like you're better than her. I'm talking about quiet confidence, the kind a woman can feel just by being near a man. You can always tell when a man is confident in who he is. He doesn't rush for approval. He doesn't compete for attention. He doesn't panic when things go wrong. He moves with calm decisions and steady emotions. And women respond to that far more than most men realize. In therapy, it becomes clear very quickly which men have confidence and which men don't. A confident man doesn't need to control a woman to feel secure. He doesn't need to monitor her, question her, or try to convince her that he's worthy. He believes in himself, and because of that, she believes in him too. Confidence sets the tone for how a woman behaves in a relationship. When a man lacks confidence, the dynamic becomes unstable. He overthinks, doubts himself, apologizes when he didn't do anything wrong, tries to earn approval instead of living with purpose. When that happens, the woman can feel the shift. She starts losing trust, not because she stopped caring about him, but because he stopped caring about himself. Women rely heavily on emotional leadership. When a man knows who he is, she relaxes. When he doesn't, she becomes anxious, frustrated, or detached. I've seen women say things they never actually meant, simply because they were reacting to a man who lost his confidence. They don't want to take control. They don't want to lead the relationship. They want to feel like the man standing beside them is grounded. The powerful thing about confidence is that you don't need to talk about it. A confident man doesn't say, "I know my worth." She feels it. He doesn't say, "I'm not afraid to lose you." His actions show it. He doesn't chase, argue, or beg because he knows connection is a choice, not a possession. Men think confidence is about looking strong. It's not. Confidence is about being unshaken when life gets loud. A confident man can listen without feeling attacked. He can disagree without becoming emotional. He can love without losing himself. Women are naturally drawn to that energy. It makes them trust, open up, and invest. It also keeps them loyal. A woman might be physically attracted to many men, but she will only stay with the one whose confidence gives her peace. When a man carries himself like he knows his value, the relationship shifts. He doesn't need to demand respect. She gives it naturally. He doesn't need to remind her of his worth. She sees it. Confidence doesn't just make a man attractive. It makes him unforgettable. And in the end, that is what sets the entire dynamic of the relationship. 7. Keeping power. Without playing games. A lot of men hear advice about holding power in a relationship and instantly think it means manipulation. They think they have to ignore her, make her jealous, act distant, or pretend they don't care. But that's not power. That's insecurity wearing a mask. Real power isn't about playing games. It's about knowing who you are and showing up that way every day. I've sat across from men who thought that being cold would make her chase them. It never works. A woman might react for a moment. She might question, she might worry, she might reach out, but eventually she gets tired. Games exhaust women. Consistency impresses them. Keeping power in a relationship is simple. Never lose yourself. Most men surrender their power the moment they forget who they were before the relationship. They stop pursuing their goals. They stop caring for themselves. They sacrifice friendships, passions, discipline, and identity just to keep her happy. And at first, she might appreciate the effort, but slowly something changes. A woman can feel when a man's world shrinks too small. She can sense when she becomes his only source of meaning. Instead of feeling loved, she feels pressured. Instead of feeling chosen, she feels responsible for his happiness. That kind of energy pushes her away, even if she loves him. The men who keep power aren't controlling, distant, or cruel. They are balanced. They give love but don't abandon themselves. They listen but don't tolerate disrespect. They stay present but don't chase approval. And here's the important part. They can walk away if the relationship becomes destructive. Not because they want to, but because they respect themselves too much to stay where they're not valued. Women don't love men who play mind games. They love men who create emotional safety. They love men who know their standards and actually live by them. They love men who are kind but firm, patient but not passive, loving but not dependent. Keeping power also means controlling your emotions, not silencing them, controlling them. A man who can stay calm when he's angry, thoughtful when he's hurt, and respectful even when he's frustrated is a rare man. Women remember that. It makes them feel protected, not attacked. And here is what most men never learn. The more secure you are within yourself, the more she respects and relies on you. You don't need to punish her, threaten her, or prove anything. You just have to remain the man you were before her, during her, and even if she leaves. Power isn't about dominance, it's about stability, about being someone she can trust, not because she fears losing you, but because she feels safe with you. When a man learns that confidence and kindness can exist together, he becomes the type of partner a woman cherishes, respects, and would rather fight for than walk away from. Power in a relationship isn't about control, winning arguments, or proving who cares less. It's about a man understanding the value he brings, his stability, his presence, his confidence, and his emotional leadership. Women don't rely on men because they're weak. They rely on the security a strong man provides. When a man stays true to himself, keeps his standards, and refuses to lose his identity, he becomes someone a woman doesn't want to lose. In the end, the real power is not in playing games, but in being a man who leads with clarity, self-respect, and emotional strength.